Hi. If you're watching this video, there's two possibilities as to who you are. You're either a long-time viewer, going back to my first video, or you somehow stumbled upon my channel. Either way, welcome. Today, I want to tell a tale. A tale about my start and my journey in competitive Pokemon. Now, before you click off, because you don't know anything about Pokemon, this video is titled, My Journey in Competitive Pokemon. What did you expect, mate? Anyways, I'm gonna try my best to explain everything as simple as possible, so that everyone can comprehend, understand, and appreciate the deeper strategies and thoughts behind these fights. So, sit back and enjoy. A good friend of mine has hosted multiple small tournaments with his friends I didn't know. I naively asked to join, knowing nothing about Pokemon, except for playing Pokemon Heart Gold back when I was 12, and one casual playthrough of Omega Ruby and Pokemon Sun, respectively. He accepted, telling me if a spot was freed up, he'd tell me. A couple months passed, and I almost forgot about the whole thing, until one day, where he told me I could join. And so, I did. It's important to talk about what kind of tournament it is. It's a draft league, a relatively niche type. It's 3 basic steps. A draft, where everyone picks the Pokemon they have to use for the full duration of the tournament. Then there's the main rounds, where everyone fights against everyone else in order to have one definitive ranking. Then the top players of the main round fight in the playoffs, where the loser of each round gets kicked out to determine the final champion. Everything is happening in Pokémon Showdown, an unofficial online Pokémon battle simulator. The advantages of this website is that we wouldn't have to sink hours, or potentially days, into building our team and training our Mons. It's also free, as well as available on any PC or phone, which allows people without the money for a Switch to join. If you're interested in competitive Pokémon, this is probably the best way to start. With all of that out of the way, let's get to the first tournament. Let's talk about the other contestants. There was Cookie Dealer, Volley, Clay, and Maurice, who I didn't know. Then Driz and Namoron, 2 really good friends of mine. And then there was L. It was also his first tournament, but his story is quite different to mine. We all vote for a date at which we all meet up in a call and pick our teams. All Pokemon are in different tiers, S being the highest and D being the lowest. Everyone could take 2 Pokemon per tier, with the exception of the B tier, where 3 were chosen, for a total of 11 Pokemon per person. Every Pokemon could only be picked once, making snipes pretty common, where someone would pick a Pokemon someone else wanted before they could take it. To make it fair, we all drafted in alternating order. I'm gonna be honest, I had no idea what I was doing. I just picked things that seemed cool. Metagross and Haxorus always used to be my favorite Pokemon. I saw Jirachi and Alolan Ninetales in a random YouTube thumbnail, and the rest was just the highest speed stat in the game, the highest special attack from a Pokemon that wasn't banned, a ridiculously high normal attack, Miltank, which completely destroyed me in that one arena you all know about in Pokemon Heart Gold, Archeops, who has really high stats for a D tier. Crazy, there couldn't be any reason why it's so low, right? Steelix, which has just one of the highest defense stats, and Bidoof, just to be funny. Though I didn't think much about strategy, let's examine this team from a competitive view and see how viable it actually was. Bidoof aside, this team was surprisingly okay. It's hyper offense, since most of my team is relatively frail, though fast and pretty strong. I neither have a good physical nor a good special wall, which means I don't have any answers to things that outspeed me. This might become a problem. I also have no good hazard removal. I'll go more into depth what that means later though. My types, however, are my biggest problem. With 40% of my team being weak to ground, as well as 40% being weak to fire, and 3 Psychic Mons, which is just an awful defensive type, I had a huge disadvantage against balanced teams. Consequently, I was missing certain types usually crucial for a good team. A bulky water type, any grass type to counter Spore, a ground type to absorb electric attacks, and Steelix does not really cut it, as well as a good flying type to take ground attacks are staples of a good balanced team. Defensively, I am missing counters to fire, ground, and dark. since relying on Haxorus, Archeops, and Conkeldurr for them respectively won't work. They're unreliable checks at best. And a good chunk of my offense was weak to very common priority moves, which are moves that usually go first, regardless of speed, like Sucker Punch or Shadow Sneak. Offensively, I am doing better though, with the Pokemon that wall my psychic attackers being threatened by Conkeldurr or Alolan Ninetales. Haxorus is also a great attacker on its own. However, my team heavily relies on it to break through a lot of common walls. All in all, this team was playable, but extremely unreliable. I would have needed to precisely use every turn in order to keep all my Pokemon alive throughout the match, as losing any Pokemon pokes huge holes in my ability to check major threats. For example, if Haxorus were to die, I had nothing to resist a strong Firemon, which half of my team is already weak to. Let's see how my first matches went. Oh, wait. There was actually one more thing to do before I could get started. I needed a name. A completely new name I would have to carry for months. It's a blank canvas right now. I could choose anything. Maybe my real name, or a wordplay, maybe a reference to a movie or a game I like. Oh, I know. Nice. With the name of a 12-year-old's first YouTube channel and equipped with a batch of random Pokemon, I decided to jump into my first fight with zero preparation. What could go wrong? I won't say much to the fights for the first tournament, mainly because I want to delve into strategies and thoughts. I didn't have any at this point. But for an illustration, let's look at Fight 1 in depth. The first round was against Clay. He picked these Mons. He has a very balanced team, with almost half his team being very defensive, meant to completely block enemy Pokemon. These are commonly known, and I will refer to them for the rest of the video as walls. Weavile, Zygarde 10%, which is the good boy version of this guy, and Mega Diancie are fast sweepers. Sweepers are usually very strong and not very defensive. They're glass cannons. The rest of the team are slow wall breakers. They have very balanced stats and are just there to kill certain Pokemon they're good against and avoid Pokemon they have a bad matchup with. Standard stuff. I started with Alolan Ninetales, whereas he started with Weavile. A favorable matchup for me, as Fairy is effective against Dark and Weavile is very frail. As he switches to Dusknoir, meant to wall my Ninetales, I set up Aurora Veil. Next, I bring in Conkeldurr. It has the ability Guts, which boosts its attack when statused. I gave it an item to status it, and if you're wondering where I got the strat from, Google. I knock his Dusknoir out, he knocks my Conkeldurr out. Now it gets a bit crazy. After managing to set this thing up with a combo of Cosmic Power, which is a move that boosts my defense, Agility, a move that boosts my speed, and Weakness Policy, an item to boost my attack, it immediately got Revenge Kill after killing the Weavile. From here on out, we just trade kills. He kills my Ninetales with a super effective Iron Tail. I knock his Mega Diancie out with an Iron Head. I also attacked a normal one with a Ghost attack, which it's immune to, though I got lucky and didn't get punished. I trade his Rotom Wash and Type Null for my Mega Alakazam. Jirachi finally finishes the job by knocking out his Zygarde. I made a lot of misplays. However, despite all that, I did win in the end, surprising not only myself, but everyone else. From here on out, I won't go into the fights for the first tournament with too much depth, as I said. The second fight was against Cookie. He started laying down hazards that gave my Pokemon negative effects or damage every time I switched them in. Usually you would remove them with Defoggers, which are Pokemon that use the move Defog, or Rapid Spinners, Mon that use Rapid Spin. I drafted neither one. Well, technically Regieleki could use Rapid Spin, and Archeops could Defog. Their stats and rolls, however, prevented them from doing it effectively, since defense is really important for a good hazard remover. Usually this would have been my downfall. Luckily, he decided to defog it away from me, in order to also get rid of the rocks on his side as well as my Aurora Veil. After countless bad switches and no predictions whatsoever, I somehow won again. And you bet your ass I was unreasonably cocky from here on out. Though, as you can tell, most players weren't really that experienced. Next up was L, and I won again? Okay, I know what you're thinking. How am I winning? Why am I winning? I should have lost, considering I didn't know what I was doing. And you're absolutely right. But I played so weird that it actually worked. For example, all of his Jirachi counters played Poltergeist, a move that hits very hard. However, if the target doesn't have an item, this move fails. And because I just liked the item, I put on weakness policy. This decision made no sense. I made Jirachi a wall. With rest, I could recover all the damage taken, and with Thunder Wave and Snore, I could flinch them down. So leftovers for more recovery, or maybe a Rocky Helmet for more passive damage, would have been the smarter move. So nobody would have ever expected weakness policy, and for good reason, it didn't do shit. But after it was triggered, I didn't have an item anymore, rendering his Jirachi wall breakers useless. My unexpected sets and unpredictable moves, together with a lot of beginner's luck, actually made me win. With now 3 wins and still no losses, it seems like my luck has run out though. To spare you a lot of unnecessary explanations, I lost. A lot. And round after round, my place on the ladder dropped. Vali won after I threw away Jirachi and Alolan Ninetales, and because I played Nightshade on Mega Alakazam, an attack that only deals a certain amount of damage based on the level of the attacker. Meaning if I was level 100, it did 100 HP of damage, so it completely ignored my insanely high special attack stat. Maurice beat me in a very close match thanks to a Choice Scarfed Infernape, and Driz, tournament leader and really good friend of mine, 6-0'd me with a Choice Scarfed Gengar. I won the last match of the main rounds against Moron, one of my best friends, thanks to Haxorus' raw power. After all the 7 main fights, I was in solid 4th place, meaning I was in the higher bracket. The bracket system is pretty simple. If you lose, you go into the lower bracket. If you lose while in the lower bracket, you drop out of the tournament. And the first round was against Maurice. The combination of Mimikyu and Scissor was unfortunately too much for me, as they could both outspeed my faster threats with priority attacks. I lost the first round and instantly dropped into the lower bracket. My next fight was a rematch against Clay. After taking out his Crobat, he didn't have a counter against my Choice Scarf Haxorus. It outsped and one-shot his 3 remaining Pokémon, bringing me into the quarterfinals. Namoron was next, and after knocking out my Alakazam, Ninetales and Haxorus, there was an exhilarating 55-turn banger, where absolutely nothing happened, since I couldn't break through either one of his both remaining Pokémon, Kyurem and Rhyperior. In the end, he made the right plays, which was just spamming Earthquake, and he knocked me out of the tournament. I ended up as 4th place. For my first tournament, I was satisfied, but I was hooked, and I decided to give it my all next time. By the way, the finale was between Driz and L, where L dominated with his Mega Charizard X and got the champion title. This was, again, his first tournament too, and he only lost once. And it was against me. Think of that what you will. I used the time between tournaments to dedicate myself to choosing the strategies for next time. Before we get into the tournament, Namoron left and got replaced by Presire, another really good friend of mine. He was very inexperienced though. We also voted that playoffs would be best of 3 now. Every second season is special. This time we were playing with Ubers, not all of them. And this was my plan for the draft. I very much wanted to keep playing hyper offense, however I did learn from mistakes and wanted to address those weaknesses. Those mainly being priority moves, entry hazards, and choice scarves. In order to counter priority moves, I based my team around Psychic Terrain, which protects grounded mons from me. This was especially important since Calyrex and Tapu were threatened by Sucker Punch and Shadow Sneak. Kartana, Chinchino and Greninja were threatened by Mag Punch or Vacuum Wave, and Regidrago and Garchomp were threatened by Ice Shard. But, as long as Psychic Terrain was up, I would neutralize all these threats. I could have drafted a bulky defog support, but I decided to lean into offensive options. I chose Hawlucha as my main defogger, as well as Regieleki with Rapid Spin as emergency backup. With this team, I wanted to mostly ignore any hazards in order to not waste any precious turns. This is usually how Hyper Offense works. It's like a steamroller. I have to push through and overwhelm my enemy before he can counter, so giving him an opportunity to set up or switch to a threat could be deadly. As for my own hazards, I drafted my absolute all-time favorite Pokemon, Shaco. This low body can lay down Stealth Rocks, dealing damage to switch-ins, and, more importantly, break Focus Sashes, as well as lay down Sticky Webs, which slows them down. My main problem last time though was Choice Scarf Pokemon. Since most of my team is very frail, they usually get one-hit KO'd by any strong attacker. I couldn't let them outspeed me. I drafted Regieleki again, as he usually beats any Pokemon, scarfed or not. My favorite, however, was Hawlucha, which, with its Unburden ability, doubles its speed once triggered, and could outspeed any scarfed mon. The plan was to give it a Psychic Seed, an item that gets consumed in Psychic Terra, thus triggering Unburden. The last thing I wanted to improve is drafting a good ground type. I chose Mega Garchomp, which can use the move Scale Shot to boost its speed. I took a load of Ninetales again for Aurora Veil support, and Greninja, Chinchino, Kartana, and Dragon Dance Regidrago, which is more fast and threatening attackers. I was confident that this team would obliterate everyone. I couldn't lose, and I was determined to win. Now before we get to the fights, I want to talk about L's draft. He took these mons, and I just wanted to point out how, funnily enough, we mirrored each other quite a bit. He took Calyrex Ice, and I took Calyrex Shadow. His other S tier mon was a strong fairy type, just like my Tapu Lele. His Mega was Mega Latias, a Dragon Mega, just like Mega Garchomp. He took Blacephalon, which is the special version of Kartana, both Ultra Beasts, and we even took a, well, kind of meme bug type, which is Shedinja and Shaco. With similarities like this, I was confident in my choices. Let's see how it went. Fight 1 was against Driz. He used a very bulky team consisting of Slowbro, Sylveon, and Giratina as walls, and Urshifu as well as Mega Manectric as offense. Donphan had Stealth Rocks as well as Rapid Spin in order to fully control hazards. He started off with Urshifu, which is 4 times weak to my Alolan Ninetales Moonblast. He revealed a Choice Scarf and Iron Head, which he one-hit my screensetter, denying Veil for the rest of the match. However, I had detected the main threat. I brought in Tapu Lele, another Fairy-mon, in order to set up Psychic Terra for my team. I switched to Greninja to resist the Iron Head. However, he switched out, predicting my Tapu Lele to be scarfed as well. He knocks out my Greninja after I set up spikes to break Focus Sashes, as they can completely stop any sweep. However, I deal enough damage to Mega Manectric that spikes would knock it out. If he doesn't remove them before, this effectively grants me either a kill or a free turn to set up during his Donphan's Rapid Spin. He brings back Urshifu. I take this opportunity to bring Hawlucha into the game. Remember, its Unburden ability makes it faster than Scarf Urshifu. He brings in Slowbro, which I unfortunately can't break through. I should have removed his Slowbro first before using my one-time Hawlucha. He makes me kill myself as he gets a free switch in with Rocky Helmet. No doubt to Rapid Spin my spikes away. I bring in Kartana and he decides to sacrifice the Donphan. This was effectively a double kill, as Mega Manectric can't be brought into the game anymore. I set up Psychic Terra against his Giratina. I know this isn't looking good for me, but this was actually a calculated sacrifice. I wanted to use this chance to sweep with Calyrex. However, his Urshifu outspeeds me and I unfortunately can't sweep. My Kartana is my last hope. I still had one ace up my sleeve though. I was scarfed. He brings in Urshifu, expecting an easy KO with close combat. However, I outspeed and kill it thanks to the chip damage of the spikes. His Slowbro and Sylveon are guaranteed outsped and one-hit, which means his Giratina is his last chance. I can only bring it down to 29% though, before he takes out my last Pokemon. Well, that was an instant loss. Close, but still a loss. This hurt. I spent hours and hours of company time during work to prepare and plan the perfect team. But I didn't want to let this drag me down, so I prepared for the next fight, eager for redemption. The next fight was against Clay. He drafted Arceus and Deoxys, two very threatening Mon, especially against my team. I start with Regieleki, as he starts with Weavile, another big threat. I decide to sacrifice my Regieleki for a guaranteed kill. It's focus sashed, which means I get one guaranteed attack off, Thunder Cage. Thunder Cage traps a Pokemon while doing residual damage. I can bring him low enough and stall with Protect to let Thunder Cage do its thing. I set up Stealth Rocks to break focus sashes before switching to Tapu Lele for Psychic Terrain. He Iron Heads me, however I reveal an eject button, which gives me a free and safe switch in to Hawlucha. His Primarina and his Dusclops are the only walls for the bird. I Sword Stance up while tanking his Ice Punches. Stone Edge luckily doesn't miss and I take it out. He sends out Deoxys, a misplay, since Arceus could have extreme speeded. I outspeed and one-hit KO his Deoxys. Another huge threat eliminated. He sees the Arceus play now and knocks my Hawlucha out. I Toxic it with Shuckle before setting up Terra one last time. I sacrifice Tapu Lele for a free switch to Calyrex. I use Expanding Force, a move that gets significantly stronger in Psychic Terra. I then outspeed and sweep the last remaining Pokemon. One win and one loss so far. Fight 3 was against Cookie, and he had built a Sandstorm team. I started with Shuckle to set up hazards. He used those turns to set up his Mega Lucario. His Bullet Punch would normally threaten offensive teams, especially after 2 Sword Stances. However, I could negate his priority attacks. He takes both Garchomp as well as Shuckle out. He surprisingly played Lucario with a Jolly Nature, a very uncommon set, which outsped my Tapu Lele, also knocking it out. This looked bad. I traded 3 Pokemon for Hazards and Terrain. I had sashed my Kartana and I used that to finally take it out. He made the same Rocky Helmet play as Driz to get a free switch into his Hippowdon, making my Kartana suicide in the process. This was bad. I used my chance to set up Hawlucha and I Sword Stance to double my attack. He revealed Yawn, which usually forces a switch. I decided that I would try to predict him slacking off in order to stall his sleep out. I wake up at the last chance to take his Nihilego out. Unfortunately, Psychic Terra does not protect Flying Hawlucha, which meant his Lycanroc could use Accelerock, a priority move I am weak to. Calyrex was my last chance. He had a tough choice to make now. He could Crunch, which would be a guaranteed one-hit KO. This would prevent any setup moves. However, if I go for an attacking move, I kill and get the boost of Chilling Neigh, giving me the win. He can switch to Celesteela, his special wall, which can take my attack very easily and wall me, winning him the game. If I predict that switch, however, and set up with Nasty Plot, I win. I take the gamble and use Nasty Plot. He made the wrong choice and switched to Celesteela, predicting an attack. I then swept the rest of his team. Even though this was another win, this match was way too close. I needed to play better. Wally was next. He had a very defensive team, which usually is bad news for hyper offense. His core of Ho-Oh, Snorlax, Palossand, and Clefable countered each of my Pokemon perfectly. I wasn't very optimistic. The first Pokemon out were Clefable and Alolan Ninetales. This Clefable could either have the ability Unaware or Wonder Guard. I knew I couldn't break through it, so I took the risk and Toxic'd it. If it had Wonder Guard, I would have just wasted a turn. Luckily, it was Unaware, which meant that it would be damaged every round from now on. We both set up our screens, as I also go for my Terrain. His Palossand fully walls my special attackers, so I decide to also Toxic it. He sends out Palkia next and reveals the very uncommon move Trick Room. This is really bad, as speed works exactly opposite now. The slowest mons go first, and the fastest mons go last. This could destroy my whole team, so I needed to stall it somehow. It's only active for 4 turns. I can do this. He decided to set up with Curse, while I Toxic his Snorlax as well. This was the same situation as with Clefable. He could have run Immunity, which would make him immune to poison. I predicted Thick Fat, and luckily Toxic got through. I sacrificed my Alolan Ninetales in order to waste one of the last 2 remaining Trick Room turns. I then used the last one to set up Stealth Rocks. I kill his Ho-Oh, however due to an unfortunate Stone Edge miss, my Garchomp gets put into the Shadow Sneak range of his Mega Gallade, which promptly revenge killed me after taking Ho-Oh out. I bring out Tapu Lele since Fairy is super effective against him. However, he reveals Poison Jab, knocking my Pokemon out. I use this opportunity to bring Hawlucha into the game, since I threaten to outspeed and one-hit KO him with Acrobatics. I knock out Palkia as well as Palisand. He brings in Gallade. His Shadow Sneak would usually kill me at 40% with lower defenses. Thankfully, I went max defense on my Hawlucha, which allows me to just about tank his priority attack. His Clefable, the next Pokemon out, was already very low. For God knows what reason, I went for Close Combat, a move that he resists. This was a huge blunder, as Clefable could take the hit and knock Hawlucha out before fainting to poison. His Snorlax is his last Pokemon. It easily takes my Regieleki's attack and knocks it out in one hit. My Calyrex couldn't kill it. I had to go for a nasty plot, hoping he couldn't KO me in one turn. I am immune to his stab attack, and I easily could take Earthquake or Fire Punch, Snorlax's most common coverage moves. He unfortunately reveals Darkest Lariat, which my Calyrex is quad weak to, and it dies. Another loss. I didn't really know what I was doing wrong. I felt like my Pokemon were objectively stronger, and I know that I prepared more than him. So, was I just bad? Is there just no way for me to win safely? I decided I need to change something. I felt like I kept wasting my sweeping opportunities, so I made a plan for my next fight. I would do absolutely everything in order to ensure the perfect sweep. My match against Maurice started and I had a plan. I knew that he would always start his fights with a Choice Scarf and Fernape in order to U-turn into a more favorable matchup. I also knew that in case my Kartana was out first, he couldn't resist going for a fire attack. I scarfed my own Kartana and used Psycho Cut. My plan works out perfectly. But he unexpectedly invested into defense, so it barely survived and we ended up trading them for each other. I sacrificed Choco for hazards before setting Psychic Tail on. He unfortunately crits my Tapu Lele, killing it. This means I only have a couple turns left to set up Hawlucha. I try my first sweep attempt. I knock out his Scissor and roost up against his Swampert. He once again crits me, which puts me into Life Orb range, thus forcing another trade. After he knocks my Alolan Ninetales out, I am once again left with nothing but my horse. But it's a strong ass horse. Thanks to Stealth Rocks, I can sweep without any problems. This was my third win. Extremely close again. Looking at my history, it was time for another ass whooping. And how fate will have it, our fight against L was about to happen. Now let's talk about the two huge problems I was about to face. His Xerneas has swept his last couple enemies in an absolute breeze. I couldn't let him use Geomancy as my whole team would crumble. I had a stupid idea. I would start with a King's Rock Chinchino. Thanks to Skill Link, Tail Slap hits 5 times, giving me a 40% chance to flinch him. I know, confusing, bear with me. If I could bring him low enough like this, I can fully eliminate the huge threat with my Focus Sash Regieleki afterward. Unfortunately, he doesn't get flinched. Fortunately, he Moonblasts me instead of using Geomancy. I decide to keep the Regieleki as emergency backup. I bring in Shaco. He sets up Ingrain for passive heals. This was the best possible move for us. He can't switch because of Ingrain, and he can't kill us instantly because of Sturdy. This gives me 2 free turns as Geomancy needs to be set up and Sturdy lets me live another turn. I use Infestation, Toxic, and Protect to chip away its health. I basically traded 2 D-tier mons for his most destructive weapon. I bring in Calyrex. His Porygon 2 fully walls it though, so I predict the switch and go for Regieleki, threatening that I could trap and remove him. His Tornadus T, however, still fully walls this one. He switches it in as I use this move to set up Reflect. He reveals Brick Break mainly to counter Aurora Veil. After some switching, he knocks my Kartana out with a Choice Scarf Blacephalon. I knew that Choice Scarf Blacephalon could only be stopped by choicing either Calyrex or Kartana. I went with Calyrex since it was walled by Porygon 2 regardless, so it didn't really matter if I locked into a Ghost attack or not. It works and Blacephalon dies. His Porygon 2 is now a free switch in for him, since he knows I am Scarfed, so he uses this time to set up something I have dreaded. Trick Room. I have no other choice than sacrificing Regieleki's Sash as well as Alolan Ninetales in order to stall it out. He also kills my Regieleki right after, which only leaves me with Calyrex once again. This time, however, it looks hopeless. I trick my Choice Scarf away, since Astral Barrage is the only move that could kill his Calyrex, and Porygon is obviously immune to it. I can barely bring it down low enough before it brings me down to 1 HP. I Astral Barrage as one last celebration as my own hail would have killed me this turn. I felt like I did the right plays. I put on pressure, there were no obvious misplays, and yet winning against L felt infinitely far away. His second major threat, Calyrex Ice, wasn't even in play for a single turn. Beating L just seemed impossible. And the difference between my wins and his wins were so obvious. He consistently lost 1 or 2 Pokemon at worst, while I was barely hanging on with 1. There was only one more fight left in the main rounds, and thankfully, my good friend Presire was, without wanting to sound mean, a nice change from all the tryharding and sweating. I helped him a lot with team building, so I pretty much knew his strategies and playstyle. After setting up Stealth Rocks, I trap and remove his Mega Swampert with my Shaco, with the usual Infestation Toxic Protect strat, thanks to Reflect set up by Regieleki. His Rayquaza is up next, and he's trying to use the rather weak Chinchino as setup fodder for Dragondan. I unfortunately revealed Triple Axle, a move he was quad weak to. I brought Rock Blast against Frostlass, and I even get the 40% flinch thanks to King's Rock. Next his Arceus is sent out, but my Mega Garchomp threatens it out. It itself gets threatened up by Mimikyu however, which forces me to switch to Regieleki. I set up Reflect and finishes Frostlass he sent into Sacrifice. After setting Terra, I sacrifice Regieleki for a free switch into Calyrex, which finishes off the rest of his Mon. Oh shoot, I forgot about Shadow Sneak. Thankfully, I knew who was banded, which meant Chinchino forced the win. After all was done, I was in 4th place with 4 wins and 3 losses. I actually just about made it into the higher bracket, together with Driz, Cookie, and of course, L. L was 1st place, and so he could choose his first enemy. He chose me, no doubt, because he saw me as easy prey. Remember, from here on out, playoff matches are played in a best of 3 style. The loser can change his team, the winner has to keep the same one. And for the first fight, I'm just gonna cut right to the chase here. He sweeped my entire team in 15 turns after setting up his Cernes using a substitute against Shuckle. The second game, however... the second game was interesting. I decided to change up my strategy quite a bit. I played Toxic on some Pokemon and prioritized it over simple damage. In hindsight, my team never had the longevity to play this playstyle effectively. However, this match will go very differently. It already paid off as I Toxic'd his Xerneas. He uses Aromatherapy to cure himself, but with the poison and hail damage as well as the wasted substitute, his Xerneas is already half dead before I even took any damage. This was a huge start so far. I Toxic'd his Porygon 2 as it switched in. After he brought in Calyrex, I poisoned it as well. This is where things took a bad turn though. First he set up Trick Room, my most feared strategy of his, and afterwards I misplayed, as Hail was gone and I still tried to set up Aurora Veil. He Glacial Lanced my Ninetales and Shuckle, while slowly withering away, as I used those turns to set up Sticky Web and stalling out Trick Room. He Aromatherapied his team, curing Xerneas and Calyrex. Then a couple turns of mainly switching happened, where he defogged my Sticky Webs away and set up his own Stealth Rocks. I knocked his Landorus out with an unexpected Ice Punch on turn 27. In turn 30 he misplayed, thinking his Moonblast could kill me. However, due to Protein I was a Poison type, letting me survive it. I don't miss Gunk Shot, letting me take out his Xerneas as well. In turn 39 I can take out his Corviknight since he has no more switch-ins to Cortana's knockoff. In turn 40 I sacrifice Shuckle for a clean switch, since Stealth Rock killed either way. In turn 44 he sacrifices Porygon 2, the most annoying little duck, for 3 more turns of Trick Room with his Calyrex. He uses those to knock out all of my remaining Mons. This was close and easily one of the most intense and fun games I've ever played, even counting my games in future tournaments. This game completely energized me again. I knew I could beat him if I just kept trying. I had to get more chances to prove myself, but he pushed me down into the lower bracket. I wasn't out yet. If I just beat everyone else, I can maybe meet him in the finale again, since I know he'll make it there. I didn't have the only fight though, and together with me, Driz was knocked into the lower bracket. At the same time, both Valley and Maurice were fully kicked out. Rest in peace. Even if he was to drop out here, I just want to mention how incredibly proud I am of my boy Presire for beating Maurice in the first round of the playoffs. Anyways, fight 1 starts with Calyrex and Mega Swampert. I brought Energy Ball, making quick work of it. I swap a normal Mon into the Ghost Attack as his Rayquaza tanks my Bullet Seed. Unfortunately, he forgot about the Triple Axle surprise from last time, and Chinchino becomes a Dragon Slayer once more. I sacrifice my Shuckle for getting Sticky Webs up, and from this point on, Cortana cleanly sweeps. Game 2 starts off just as promising, as Kartana knocks his Mimikyu out. His Gengar finally pressures a switch. We trade Sticky Webs for Stealth Rocks. His Arceus double homicides my Shuckle as well as Kartana, before my Calyrex takes revenge. I fear that his Gengar might have a Focus Sash, so I switch to Chinchino once again. He blunders a Swampert since Bullet Seed shreds through it. My Tapu Lele barely survives the Power Whip and takes the Ruda out. His Gengar comes out, and this time he correctly predicts the Chinchino switch in, taking it out with a Sludge Bomb. It's finally time for another Hawlucha cleanup, as I abuse the Psychic Terrain with Unburden. It's sad to see my friend go, but he put up a good fight, and I love you, mate. Parallel to our fight, Cookie got kicked out by Clay. This means our next enemy in the quarterfinals was Clay. I won against him last time, so this shouldn't be hard. Right? And yeah, honestly the first fight went pretty well. I got a great start by taking his Zygarde out with an Ice Beam he honestly could have predicted. After taking out my Greninja with a very interesting offensive power-up and Sucker Punch set on his Dusclops, I revenge kill it with Mega Garchomp, scale shooting it to boost my speed. I do the same to Crustle. His Arceus threatens me with extreme speed, but my Psychic Terra protects me. After my eject button gives me a clean switch to my Hawlucha, it sweeps the rest. One man down, one more to go. I get another great start in fight 2, when my Greninja reveals to be mixed, having Gunk Shot as coverage against Primarina. I switch out against his Arceus. He Sword Stances up. Uh-oh. He almost kills my Garchomp, after which Tapu Lele brings him to half health before dying. Calyrex Shadow can finally take it out with Expanding Force, an insanely hard-hitting move. I forgot that his Aggron has Sturdy prior to Mega Evolving. He intentionally doesn't Mega Evolve to revenge kill my Calyrex. I gotta give him credit, that was creative. My Hawlucha can come in and I try my sweep. He reveals a Toxic Substitute Protect set on Dusclops this time, which brings me low enough to get revenge killed. This is where I absolutely blunder my win away. Going to Greninja would have ensured me the win, as Ice Beam and Dark Pulse kill both of his last remaining Pokemon, and I am sashed. I decide to go to Shuckle in order to poison it. He has just enough health left to substitute, which lets him set up Dragon Dance in order to sweep with his Zygarde. I was being careless, and I might have just lost my chance to win. However, since I lost, I could change my team. He clearly prepared for abusing Shuckle's passiveness, so I decided to trade it for Regidrago. I also set up rocks early this time, in order to waste no more turns on that. He Sword Stances Arceus. I decide to sacrifice Garchomp in order to take it out with Calyrex once again. It works, and his Deoxys finally threatens me out. My Regidrago can take the hit, and I reveal a Dragon Dance set myself. His fairy Pokemon would usually threaten me out. I prepared with Thunderfang, however. I knew his Dusclops set is toxic, which is why I brought Substitute. It felt great giving him a taste of his own medicine. His Mega Aggron is too tanky though, and he survives with 1 HP before taking my Regidrago down. I set up Terra, and he reveals Steel Roller, a move to remove it again. My Greninja finally takes it out, and his Deoxys revenge kills it. I decide to go for my Hawlucha sweep, as his main counters, E-Speed Arceus and Defensive Filter Mega Aggron, are already dead. He gets a Toxic off with Dusclops, and his Zygarde survives the hit, and together they can stop the sweep. Calyrex at this point, however, is unstoppable, except a Choice Scarf Deoxys. I use the move Agility in order to guarantee outspeeding everything. His Dusclops has his Toxic Sub-Protect set, so I just have to hope that his last move isn't Sucker Punch. Well, just as Psychic Terra stops and he barely survives the Stealth Rocks, he reveals his last move and yeets my horse. It's Tapu Lele versus Deoxys. I definitely kill, no doubt. I just need to survive one Shadow Ball. If it doesn't have choice specs, I easily survive. If it is, it's exactly a 50-50 chance either way. I can tell you now, he is in fact spexed. And I survive with 2% and I knock it out. My wins keep getting closer and closer, but I do move on to the semi-finals against Driz, who just got knocked down into the lower bracket by L. He is the final obstacle in my way to getting another chance to beat my arch nemesis. The last time I faced him, I lost, so let's see how it went. We started off with trading Stealth Rocks, as well as me setting up some speed. I knock his Sylveon out with an unexpected Iron Tail, instantly giving me a huge advantage. Both Garchomp as well as Regidrago have no solid counter anymore. His choice-scarfed Urshifu, however, deals more damage to my Greninja than I have expected. So from now on, whenever it comes out, it demands a sacrifice. I choose Regidrago this time. My Kartana is choice-scarfed and I can take it out with a Sacred Sword. His Slowbro can take it, however, which means I have to change my strategy and come up with a way to adapt. Otherwise, he can just bring in Urshifu, claim a kill, and then switch to Slowbro to tank my counterattack before teleporting back to Urshifu. I bring in Garchomp as he brings in Manectric. He no doubt has Hidden Power Ice, a move I am quad weak to. However, even if he is full special attack, I survive with an 80% chance. So I gamble and press Earthquake. I tank the hit and take Manectric out. By the way, he forgot to Mega Evolve here, which is why I had a 100% chance to survive anyways. He brings in the dreaded Urshifu, so I have no other choice than to sacrifice my Garchomp. I bring in Kartana, but I instantly switch to Greninja. The Froggy is perfect, since he either goes to Slowbro in case he predicts Sacred Sword, or he goes to Giratina if he predicts my predict using Leaf Blade for Slowbro. My Greninja counters both. He predicted Leaf Blade and brings in Giratina. However, I knew he would go to either Donphan or Urshifu, his last remaining Pokemon that aren't weak to Dark Pulse. We both knew how important Urshifu was for him, so I correctly predicted the Donphan switch in with Ice Beam. His Urshifu comes yet again to claim another soul. He U-turns to Slowbro, which gives me the perfect opportunity for Kartana. My knockoff is strong against both Giratina as well as Slowbro. Additionally, his knockoff switch-in, Urshifu, heavily depends on his choice scarf. He still goes for it, losing his strongest weapon for the fight. He just lost his only counter to Calyrex, and I lose no time setting up Psychic Terror to protect me from another unexpected Sucker Punch. I sweep the rest of his team and take my first win. In game 2 he starts off with Donphan. I actually predicted this and sent out Kartana, threatening Leaf Blade. I thought he would switch, so I used Knockoff. He didn't, which forced me to retreat. My Regidrago misses a crucial Scale Shot, which leads to its death. I wanted to kill it with Garchomp's Scale Shot to deny his Urshifu. I get pretty unlucky and only hit 2 times though, in addition to forgetting to Mega Evolve, which leads to unnecessary damage. I know that I won't be able to deal that much damage to Slowbro, and he can regenerate it away, so I decide to set up Stealth Rocks instead. My Kartana threatens Knockoff once again. This time he prepared. He put a Colbur Berry on, halving any damage taken from a super effective Dark attack. He knew exactly what my strategies were from last match, and he was playing perfectly around them. I sacrificed Kartana to keep Greninja alive. This was the last nail in the coffin, as his Urshifu could kill everything now, without any counter opportunities from my side. And he does exactly that, taking out the rest of my team. This was bad. I needed a new strategy, a new way to beat Urshifu. I only had one other Pokemon in my mind that could outspeed and one-hit KO it, Hawlucha. I also decided that Aurora Veil would overall help me more than Regidrago or Greninja had. In game 3, I was instantly greeted by an aggressive start. He knew that Kartana was coming and wanted to close combat me. I couldn't risk sacrificing my Calyrex to a wrong prediction though, so I first switched Garchomp in to make sure. I went to Calyrex as he took my Astral Barrage with Lickilicky. In chat, he dared me to stay in, so I knew he had something. Looking at Lickilicky's move, he had Knockoff. This was the perfect opportunity to bring Hawlucha in, as Knockoff would trigger Unburden, and his guaranteed switch would give me an opportunity to Swords Dance. I take out his Mega Manectric before Slowbro out-tanks me. Tapu Lele gets walled by especially defensive Lickilicky, so I switch to Garchomp as Knockoff deals less damage due to Mega Stones not being removable. My Mega Garchomp then faces this cunt. Since he has been consistently protecting every other turn for a leftover recovery, I set up Stealth Rocks knowing it had no consequence. Another 2 unlucky Scale Shots later, he mercy kills my broken Garchomp. I use Aurora Veil as he heals himself up. Kartana's Leaf Blade has no solid wall, so I just spam it. Thanks to Aurora Veil, I can even bring his Giratina low before fainting. Ninetales is invaluable here, as I can wreak havoc as much as I want. Physically defensive Alolan Ninetales can take close combat thanks to Aurora Veil and resists Wicked Blow, the only attack to ignore the Veil's effect. I put Slowbro to sleep since it survives my attacks easily. This way I can just chip away at it without fearing getting worn down. I send my Tapu Lele in, since the Veil was about to disappear, and without Hail I couldn't set up a new one, and kill both Donphan as well as Slowbro. His Urshifu is the only one left, though to be fair he's also the scariest one. Luckily, Alolan Ninetales can take his Wicked Blow and I finish it off with a Moonblast. Now before you say, whoa, that was close, Don't worry, my Calyrex was also scarfed, meaning Draining Kiss would have won either way. I actually made it. Despite all odds, despite getting dropped into the lower bracket after my first fight, I wiggled my way back into the finale. The only one left to beat was L. I cannot even convey how hard my heart was beating. I know it might seem silly, but this fight meant something to me. I already knew this fight was coming as soon as I lost against him the first time. Over months of preparation and thinking of new strategies, I was finally allowed to give it one more shot. With shaking hands, I challenged him to the first fight. He brought the same team as last time. I switched out Regieleki for Tapu Lele, since the Psychic Terra could boost my Calyrex's expanding force, and with Psychic Terra in my team, I could take Hawlucha instead of Cortana to possibly sweep him. The fight begins. His Dhelmise is out, and I already need to sacrifice something. Its Heavy Slam with the ability Steelworker deals so much damage that none of my Pokemon could comfortably tank it. I sacrifice Shuckle, my least important Mon, and bring in Chinchino. I hope for luck as I play the same King's Rock strategy. It unfortunately doesn't work once again, and I try to get a kill with my Calyrex instead. He obviously switches Porygon 2 in, and I missed my chance to use Expanding Force. My Chinchino can deal some damage though, as I predict the switch to Dhelmise, bringing it down to 38%. He revenge kills me however, and I need to sacrifice both Tapu Lele as well as the Lone and Ninetales in order to stall out the Trick Room. This time, when Calyrex comes back however, I use Expanding Force. His Porygon 2 barely survives and his Calyrex pressures me out. I can finish the Porygon with Hawlucha before Xerneas comes out. This matchup is exactly what I've been waiting for. I designed a set specifically for this situation. I used a Focus Sash on Hawlucha. I could Sword Stance up while he uses Geomancy. Then, when he Moonblasts me, I lose the Sash, trigger Unburden, and can finish it off. He decides to use Geomancy again, likely because he thought my unburdened Hawlucha could still outspeed, and he can take the hits. I use that extra turn to Sword Stance once more before my plan works perfectly. His Landorus is unfortunately just tanky enough that, paired with Intimidate, he can survive. But he did enough. My Calyrex damages his Corviknight enough that I win. There is nothing that can still take my attack. I knew that it was full attack. Since he didn't skill into speed, he skilled into max HP. This gave me a 56% chance to kill. Consequently, this was a 56% chance to win. I clicked Astral Barrage and it survived. I had lost the 50-50, which means I had lost the first game. So close. This loss felt so good though. I think if I can just get lucky and don't make any more stupid mistakes, I can win. For game 2, I took Cortana in my team, and I finally switched out Shuckle, since he really seemed useless most of the time. I started with Chinchino, and he sent out Lando T. After some switching, he sets up Stealth Rocks, while I damage his Landorus. I switch into a knockoff with Hawlucha, which allows me to freely set up once again. I can damage his Xerneas quite a lot before he unfortunately stops the sweep. My Cortana threatens to revenge kill, so he switches to Landorus T, his physical wall. I can take it down to 2% before he knocks me out. My Chinchino takes the Corviknight down thanks to my King's Rock strategy. He sets up Trick Room because I missed the Hypnosis to deny it. I sacrifice Tapu Lele to stall it out. This looks extremely promising. My Chinchino finally takes out Xerneas, I miss an important triple axle, and it's just my Calyrex left. However, I have switched up my strategy since last time. Together with Taunt, I'm able to beat Porygon 2. With the special defense drop of Psychic, it's sealed. This means I have won, this time for real. I outspeed and kill everything. No more 50-50s, since I will get a chilling Nay boost as soon as the first Pokemon falls. And then I get frozen. And I didn't unfreeze the first turn. And I didn't unfreeze the second turn. And then my little horse dies. And with it, my dreams and hopes. It seems like the universe stepped in to not let me win once again. But instead of being sad or mad about it, I was deliriously happy. I didn't beat him, not even once. But I got so close, and all that proved to me was how much I've improved. The overconfident idiot actually made his way out of the lower bracket, beating everyone he lost to before. I knew he was better, so honestly, I decided to just have fun next time. No more sweating, no more stressing myself over these fights. I'm gonna go full gimmick, and who knows, The one time I beat him was with an unexpected stupid set. Quick intermission from future David. This is my first video, so I should probably still be sitting at a chill 0 subscribers. So, if you want to be one of the first subscribers ever on this channel, now's the time. I'm not gonna beg anymore, I promise. None of the participants changed for Tournament 3, but we added a new stage. After the main rounds, we could exchange 4 Pokémon with new ones in the redraft, in order to refine the teams before the playoffs start, where the fights actually matter. But first came the main draft. This time I decided to throw as much random bullshit at my enemy as possible. My problem was that I wasn't able to really adapt to different strategies, so why not have a couple strategies in my own team? I devised a plan. I would draft Tyranitar and Dracozolt. Tyranitar could set up Sand, and Dracozolt can outspeed threats with Sand Rush and hit hard with Bolt Beak or Draco Meteor. And to be honest, I fell really in love with Trick Room, and so I drafted my arch nemesis Porygon 2, as well as Hatterene, Claydol, Dusknoir, and Deoxys Death as Trick Room setters. I know it was overkill, but why not go balls to the walls with it, right? Stakataka, Mega Heracross, and the slept-on Arctovish could then take advantage of their low speed in order to hit hard. And finally, both Kikli as well as Slurpuff were there to sprinkle some gimmicks in there. You'll see. Stacked with a team like that, I thought I would just try to have fun. Learn how to play this team effectively, and who knows, I might even win. The tournament started off with a fight against Cookie. He played Hawlucha this season, but with Electric Seed Tapu Koko instead of Psychic Seed Tapu Lele. I set up Trick Room as he sets up Light Screen. I then blow myself up in order to give me the maximum amount of turns left in Trick Room. My seriously very underrated Arctovish comes in and demolishes with Fish's Rend, a move that doubles its power if I go first. Usually my speed stat prevents me from using this effectively. That's why it becomes a perfect Trick Room sweeper. I knock out his Scissor and damage his Tornadus before Trick Room runs out. I set up Trick Room once again while his Slowbro sets up. A Stone Edge miss means I have to sacrifice Tyranitar. My Arctovish would kill. However, Quick Draw activates, letting him go first. Unlucky timing for me. Trick Room runs out though, and Sandrush Dracozolt can kill. Unless Quick Claw activates this time, letting him outspeed once again. With my main attackers dead, he can make quick work of my setups. That was honestly terribly bad luck for a first game. His Quick Claw, Quick Draw activated on both of our main offensive mons, leaving me with no real way to win. A 5-0 loss was not the start I was looking for, but no reason to sulk. I had more than enough opportunities for redemption. Maurice had a very balanced team with Doublade and Ferrothorn as defense and Mega Houndoom with Garchomp as their main offense. Pidgeot is used for Defog, and Infernape is, as always, his Choice Scarf pivot. He starts off with Doublade, which means his Infernape had to run a different set, as I reveal an offensive set on my Porygon 2. It can threaten his walls with Hidden Power Fire. He sends in his Garchomp to take it, but I have coverage against it in Ice Beam. A really clean first kill. My Hidden Power Fire completely threatens his Ferrothorn, and I even dodged Leech Seeds. He sends an Infernape next, and I absorb the Fake Out. I'm able to set up Trick Room while he switches to Houndoom. My Memento sacrifices Dusknoir, again to use the max turns of Trick Rooms with Mega Heracross. He stalls it out with Ferrothorn however, and I ultimately don't achieve anything. I send in Tyranitar next, and predict his Ferrothorn with a Fire Punch. It works, and we're up 5-4. I sacrifice Tyranitar, and after setting Trick Room up, Hatterene. I know that every death so far has been a sacrifice, and there's been a couple too many, but that's why I drafted so many Trick Room setters. I wanted to sacrifice at very precise turns in order to force a win. My Mega Heracross can take out Doublade, and my Arctovish can take out Infernape, as well as Pidgeot. He only has one mon left, and this was my plan. The Duck cleanly switches in after sacrificing Arctovish. The Duck then sets up Trick Room. The Duck then dies, and I can Rock Blast his Houndoom with my Heracross. The first 2 steps go great. However, I did not expect Porygon 2 to survive. I thought he would kill me in the next turn, however he uses Nasty Plot again. It's now a guessing game, as I could switch Heracross in case he uses Nasty Plot again. If he attacks however, I lose. If he attacks and I stay in, he kills my Porygon 2 and I can use the last turn of Trick Room to win. I unfortunately guessed wrong and he predicts me staying in. Trick Room runs out and he outspeeds Heracross. My second game, my second loss. Well, let's see who my next enemy is. Oh, he has a really basic and standard team. Blissey and Skarmory as special and physical walls respectively, and lots of scary offense. I start by setting up Trick Room and then hitting him with an unexpected Psychic. He predicted Spikes or Stealth Rocks, allowing me to take out his Buzzwole. Scary one gone. I bring an Arctovish and deal more damage than he expected. He has to sacrifice something and he goes with Victini. I sacrifice Deoxys defense to bring in Hatterene. Thanks to my sash, I'm allowed to set Trick Room up. Misty Explosion unfortunately doesn't kill. He survives with 1%. This Trick Room turn I have to waste now might matter. Arctovish takes out Skarmory and Blissey as Trick Room runs out. I then sacrifice Tyranitar for a Sandstorm. I know that his Crocodile would survive my attack and retaliate with Earthquake, which means I have to get him to use close combat once again. I swap in Porygon 2 as bait and then sacrifice my Arctovish, which is useless without Trick Room. I then also send in Porygon 2 to get his defense even lower. Dracozolt comes out and I try to kill. He switches out, however, allowing me to take out Dragapult. Sand runs out, regardless to me not being able to one-hit KO him, and I lose the match. Another loss, boys. Woo! It's okay though, as I'm still learning to play my team. At least that's what I tell myself to sleep at night. Valley was up next with the most defensive team of the tournament. I decided to bring in Stakataka this time, as I felt like I didn't have enough offense with me. Other than that, I have my Hatterene Arctovish as well as my Tyranitar Dracozolt combo. Nothing really happened for the first couple turns until I get into position with my Stakataka. I surprise his Corviknight with Heat Crash, a very effective attack, enough to kill him after getting healed up by Wish. I get myself into position with Arctovish once again. However, his Palisand takes less damage than I expected, which means it's physically defensive. I switch to Dracozolt, a mixed attacker. Draco Meteor is free here, or so I thought. He reveals Assault Vest, a really uncommon set on Palisand, and he can take my Dracozolt out. I play Tyranitar before he switches to Amoonguss. I predict the Sludge Bomb for Hatterene and Dragon Dance out. His Guzzlord survives the Stone Edge, but fails to kill me. He tries to revenge kill me with Shadow Sneak. I built max defense, however, and thanks to my Dark typing, I can survive. He brings in the only one Pokemon that would have survived last, allowing me to sweep most of his team for free. He uses both Spore as well as Synthesis. Looking at his moveset, the only way for him to deal damage is Poison. My Stakataka luckily still lives, allowing me to force a win, after he stalls a couple more turns for no reason. My first win! I felt like my losing streak might have finally come to an end, and I mastered my team. Excited for my next fight, I thought I might switch it up a bit. Hitmonlee's gimmick is Unburden, an ability we're all pretty familiar with right now. I thought of a great set before this tournament and decided to have some fun. The next target was Clay. He played a very interesting team. As Rapid Spinner he played Mr. Rhyme. Klefki was his hazard setup with Spikes. He starts off with an unusual set. He tricks Black Sludge on my Porygon 2, making me take passive damage over time, as well as reducing my defense and special defense by 50% by removing my Eviolite. I murder Klefki after he set up screens. I switch my Porygon 2 into Phenexus, which funnily enough makes him trick Eviolite back on my duck. After some switching, I find myself in a very peculiar situation. I allowed Mega Aggron to set up, which means I had no way of defeating him, since most of my attackers were physical. And with Filter, he could easily survive a Fire Blast from Dracozolt. I do have an ace up my sleeve though, as I allow him to set up. Dusknoir sets up Trick Room to outspeed Aggron. I can then perfectly time Destiny Bond, a move that allows me to take my killer down with me. I then reveal my Hitmonlee set. I use Fake Out together with a normal gem, which lets me trigger Unburden. I can kill Delphox and bring Thunderslow due to missing Stone Edge. Tyranitar finishes the job before getting revenge killed by Breloom. My Arctozolt outspeeds in Sand, allowing me to one-hit KO with Fire Blast. I unfortunately miss. Breloom can then take the rest of my team out due to multiple fighting weaknesses. A really unfortunate miss which gave me yet another loss. But honestly, I wasn't really bummed out at this point. I knew that my team had potential. Hitmonlee did not work out, however. With the redraft coming closer, I wanted to test my Slurpuff strategy. It also has Unburden, just like Hitmonlee, just like Hawlucha. In contrast, however, it doesn't like the power I was looking for after setting up. The plan is to use Belly Drum, a move that maximizes my attack stat. It halves my health, which lets me use a Citrus Berry, trigger Unburden in the process. This makes a much more threatening attacker, but setting up is harder and much less reliable. High risk, high reward. I like that. Let's see how it went. My win conditions were either surprising him with Slurpuff after breaking Mimikyu's disguise ability, which would let him nullify the first attack he takes, sweeping with Mega Heracross, which has Rock Blast, Pin Missile, and Bullet Seed. I can one-hit KO every single Pokemon he drafted if I use the right coverage move, or Arctivicious Raw Power, which can obliterate anything with its great Water-Ice stab combination, except for Wishy-Washy. I started with breaking Mimikyu's disguise in turn 2. Slurpuff was looking really good already. He reveals a really weird set of Trick Room himself to counter me. We keep going back and forth until both Porygon 2 and Rhydon are threatened out. I sacrifice Dusk Noir with Memento, a move that halves the opposing Pokemon's attack for the price of just one blood sacrifice. The perfect opportunity for Slurpuff's destruction. His Weezing is tanky enough unfortunately, which lets him Toxic me. I'm on a timer now. He successfully stalls me out with only the death of his Mimikyu. Plan 1 failed. Time for plan B. I set up another Trick Room and I get ready for Mega Heracross. I take out Weezing as well as Rhydon before I get a really unlucky burn from Scald. Before I die I get one more attack. I actually correctly predicted him to switch to Rillaboom, but I missed. Arctivicious Time to Shine gets cut short by Superpower. I couldn't set up Trick Room since I left my Porygon 2 on 2 low of health. His Thundurus can then outspeed and sweep the rest of my team. I felt like I had no chance to win like this. There were way too many sacrifices, way too much risk. I needed to change things up. The redraft was just one match away and I decided to get it out of the way before changing my team. My boy Presar was next and I was actually really excited. He has improved a lot since last time, and as I didn't mind another loss, I was looking forward to finding out how it would go. He played a Sun team with Mega Charizard Y as his weather setter and potentially Solar Blade on Kartana or a 100% Harvest on Alolan Exeggutor to take advantage of it. He puts my Tyranitar to sleep with a Smeargle. Because we play with a Sleep Clause, he isn't allowed to put another Mon to sleep. So as long as I keep the T-Tar asleep in my pocket, I'm immune to Smeargle's Spore. Stakataka's brilliance is that I can set up my own Trick Room. I also reveal Heat Crash, a strong move that allows me to take his Kartana out. His Charizard finally threatens me out, however. I thought my Tyranitar could wall his Celesteela, since most sets use Air Slash and Flamethrower, but he reveals Meteor Beam and Flash Cannon, a more gimmicky and fun set that catches me off guard and gets him the kill. Luckily, Dracozolt can still outspeed and kill everything in my last 3 sand turns. He does the gambit of only sacrificing Charizard in order to get rid of sand once and for all, since T-Tar is dead. A great play. His Mamoswine forces me to switch and Porygon 2 was my best bet. He has Superpower though and evens the playing field. After using Dusk Noir to set Trick Room up, I switch in Stakataka once again. After getting a lucky crit, I threaten his whole team. He chooses Mamoswine as a sacrifice to survive Trick Room. Some switching later, he misses Draco Meteor before predicting wrong. This lets me take out Alolan Exeggutor, his last big threat. Celesteela shot its ammo when it's used Meteor Beam on turn 7, and Smeargle on himself is pretty useless without Moody, which is banned in the tournament. I use Slurpuff as my sleep denier before Stakataka takes the win. It was nice to get another win, though I was also rooting for Prestar, so well. Anyways, it was finally time to be able to switch my team up a bit. I barely used certain members of my team, and it was about time to get rid of them. Too many Trick Room setters, not enough flexibility, not enough threats. That was my problem. Both Deoxys as well as Claydol were a burden on my team, as they were yet another Psychic type and not very strong on their own. I decided to replace them with Togekiss, some defense, as well as Golurk, some offense. Hitmonlee didn't work out quite as good as I expected, so I took Ditto instead for some sprinkled in chaos. And finally, Stakataka was great and all, but the quad fighting and quad ground weakness was too annoying for me. My team's offense was weak to fighting anyways, so it was time to get rid of it. For my final gimmick, I took Togedemaru, as I wanted to abuse a little loophole. In the rules, there was no restriction on the level of a Pokemon. I would play Toge at level 1. With Shell Bell, Sturdy and Endeavor, I could completely outplay any normal meta. I was ready for the final fights. After losing almost every game, I obviously found myself in the lower bracket, but I felt like I had learned my team. I felt strangely confident, but in order to actually win, I would have to dig my way out of a pretty deep ditch. So let's see how the playoffs went. And we start with Presire, and I think those last few changes gave my team the final optimization it needed. My Togekiss has the absolutely disgusting strat of Thunder Wave Paralysis and Serene Grace Air Slash, which gives me a 70% chance to deny the opposing Pokemon to be able to move. His Smeargle threatens with Spore, which can be fully countered by Hatterene's Magic Bounce. Cloyster's Shell Smash sweep luckily gets stopped by Trick Room, which Mega Heracross can use to take out Cloyster and Mega Charizard Y. His slacking gets walled by Golurk. With Trick Room running out, I can set up Rock Polish in order to outspeed and kill the rest of his team with Dynamic Punch. A solid start. With all those different gimmicks at my disposal, I was able to perfectly counter everything he was throwing at me. The second match started the same way. However, this time he learned and sent his Mamoswine. This thing is a problem. His Choice Bandit set would threaten my Togekiss, which doesn't make it a good switch in into Superpower. I take the gamble, however he wasn't choiced and takes Tyranitar out. The stand is still out though, and Dracozolt can low kick Cloyster and Celesteela. The only reason he switched in Celesteela was to bait for Bolt Beak, my strongest move, in order to absorb it with Mamoswine's ground type. I predict and use Flamethrower, a move that threatens both of them. We end up trading since he survived and Ice Sharded, a priority attack. My Togekiss walls most of his mons, though Celesteela's Flash Cannon unfortunately puts it down after Flamethrower fails to kill. With all of his team low, it's the perfect opportunity for another Golurk sweep. Slacking's Shadow Claw doesn't come out due to being confused, though I was focus sashed anyway. His Kartana surprisingly survives, though he also hits himself. If they both had been able to attack me, he would have been able to still survive the sweep, though there was only a 25% chance. Great matches, and I just want to alliterate how proud I am of Freezer. But I was on my way to the champion title, and I would let nothing stop me. Vali was also kicked out by Maurice, while Cookie and Driz were dropped to the lower bracket, after losing to Clay and L respectively. My next enemy was gonna be Driz. My team is generally pretty good against him. I was just very unlucky last time. I just have to believe in the power of the moon and the power of friendship and try my best. He brought his newly drafted Comfey and Lucario. He now had 3 strong priority attackers with Rillaboom's Grassy Glide. It was time to give Togedemaru a try, and with a Sand combo, a Trick Room combo, as well as Trusty Dusty Golurk, I was feeling pretty confident. It starts off terrible after his Rillaboom is assault vested, letting him take out Dracozolt due to not doing as much damage as I thought. Togedemaru's Endeavor with Sandstorm is a surprisingly effective combo, which lets me take out Thundurus. Comfey's Leech Seed counters Shell Bell though, and I am threatened out. After setting up Trick Room, Mega Heracross can take out Wishiwashi and Golurk can take out Lucario. Togedemaru makes for an amazing sacrifice, since Comfey's Draining Kiss doesn't recover any health. Rillaboom is his last real threat, since Weezing is mainly defensive and Comfey loses to specially defensive Tyranitar. And that it does, as I heavy slam it into Oblivion. I do the same to Weezing before Rillaboom comes in. He takes out Tyranitar, and after setting up Trick Room and bringing him down to a third of his health, Porygon 2. Heracross finishes the job, and with a full team effort we get the first win. Because Driz lost, he can switch his team up a bit, and brings in Heatran for the fish whose name I'm sick of saying. Heatran is unfortunately a huge problem. His Magma Storm counters Togedemaru and Porygon 2, and his Flash Cannon and Earth Power threaten my Sand team. He leads with Rillaboom, who gets into a 1v1 with Porygon 2. I get him down to 30% before I underestimate his Grassy Glide. I thought after 2 attack drops he couldn't kill, but alas I die. He Will-O-Wisps Golurk, making it effectively useless for me, so another sacrifice was made. Team Trick Room failed, so time for the Sand Boys. His Comfey deals way more and takes way less damage than I expected, which means death for Dracozolt. Togedemaru can take it out thanks to Sandstorm, but his Weezing comes in. I fully expected him to protect here since Leech Seed would break my sturdy, but he predicts the switch and burns another Mon, Heracross. This sealed my fate, as Togedemaru could only take out Rillaboom and Weezing before a burn breaks its sturdy. It's 1-1, but this time it's my turn to switch my team up. I decided to just go crazy, and I brought Slurpuff instead of Togedemaru and switched my Sand team out for another Trick Room sweeper, Octavish, and a perfect Weezing counter, Togekiss. The idea here is to deal as much damage as I can before cleaning up with Slurpuff or one of my Trick Room mons. I trade some damage on Weezing for a Toxic on Golurk. Sometime later he sets up Stealth Rocks and I bring both Rillaboom and Heatran to half health. His Rillaboom takes out Golurk and his Heatran takes out Togekiss after I paralyze it. This might look bad, but all these turns while he got hazards and kills, I only had one goal in mind: damage. His 2 most defensive mons are now on half health, Rillaboom on 2/3. It's time for my first Trick Room. I unfortunately miss instantly, giving me only 1 kill. With the monkey gone, Lucario's Bullet Punch was the only thing that could still stop Slurpuff. Thankfully he switched him in, and thanks to full def investment I am able to take it out after surviving a Zen Headbutt. It's Slurpuff time. Heatran's Flame Body thankfully doesn't trigger, which was his last hope. I slaughter Heatran, Weezing, Thundurus, and finally Comfey. Another win, another step closer to the finale. Meanwhile, Cookie lost to Maurice, forcing him out of the tournament. Knowing that L will win against Clay in the next match, I knew my remaining enemies. First was Maurice, highest in the lower bracket, then Clay, who was overall second, and finally L, who obviously hasn't lost a single game yet. Well, only if I win those fights. Maurice played the exact same team as before, just that his Pidgeot touched an electrical socket. His pivot is Infernape, so it's 100% Choice Scarf, and about to U-turn out, since I threaten with Thunder Wave or Air Slash. His perfect switch-in would be Zapdos then, which I didn't realize. He absorbs the Thunder Wave and gets a favorable matchup. I brought Hidden Power Ice for Garchomp and any flying mods, but he's more defensive than I thought. Since he Toxic'd me already, it's really likely he would use an electric attack now, which I predicted and absorbed. My Golurk can then Rock Polish and take out Ferrothorn and trade with Garchomp, which was revealed to have the Choice Scarf, which means Infernape is either banded or has heavy duty boots. My Tyranitar gets whittled down by Toxic and Rocky Helmet Zapdos, but I wanted to sacrifice it for a clean switch-in into Dracozone. I can take out Mega Houndoom and Doyuplus. His Infernape comes back in and outspeeds me. I'm pretty sure my Golurk had enough speed IVs to outspeed the whole team after Rock Polish, so I'm pretty sure he had 2 Choice Scarves, which would have been a rule break. Well, either way I didn't notice and my sweep gets cut short, but the damage is already done and my Arctovish can clean up after Trick Room was set up. At least it could have, but I decided to play safe and let Togekiss do the rest. For fight 2, he switched one Ice Quad Weakmon for another, Gliscor. I decided to play more aggressive and brought Arctovish into the game as soon as possible. I do get punished for it when he T-bolted, predicting me. His Doublade blocks me since it barely survives thanks to Shadow Sneak. The priority move meant it attacked first, which halved Fish's Wren's damage. After a bit of switching around, I get another Trick Room up. This time I bring in Tyranitar. I threaten with Stone Edge, which is why I predicted Gliscor, and I Ice Punch it to a quarter of its health. I even get the Freeze, which denies him the Protect and gives me another turn for Trick Room. He takes the second Ice Punch with no problem and Infernape is back again. He can't hurt Golurk though, and I use the opportunity for a free Rock Polish. With Garchomp gone, the only thing able to stop a Golurk sweep is Infernape. I decide to switch out as I can try again sometime later. I then sacrifice Porygon 2 and Arctovish to set up Dracozone in Sand. Stupid Zapdos finally gets sent where he belongs before his Ferrothorn protects on Flamethrower, so I know he's baiting for one. His Mega Houndoom has Flash Fire, which lets it absorb fire attacks in order to get a damage boost. The play is obvious and I Stone Edge the Mega to death as it switches in. After then killing the still frozen Gliscor, my Sandstorm timer is up. Tyranitar is next and I reveal Fire Punch as well. His only shot is going to Infernape, which I knew, and Earthquaked. Ferrothorn can finally die as I win yet another match. This is insane. The whole experience was crazy since I lost almost every game in the main rounds, and I was in the semi-finals now. I weaseled my way back into at least top 3. Clay was the only one stopping me from going up against L, since he predictably lost against him in the round parallel to mine. Even if I lose against my next opponent, I was already really happy. I knew my mom was already proud of me, so I didn't stress myself and started preparing. Let's get into the last few fights. His Rain team usually always beats me. In order to beat a strong Rain team, you need an incredibly balanced and typically defensive team. My team is neither. So I decided to go full gimmick, full bullshit and full surprise. I took Hatterene for Magic Bounce to deny Hazard, Porygon 2 and Mega Heracross for a small Trick Room duo, and Ditto, Level 1 Togedemaru and Slurpuff as they're my most chaotic mons. This fight was gonna be like cooking spaghetti. I'll throw a bunch of shit at the wall and hope something sticks. He brought a basic Rain team. Pelipper as Rain Setter, Mega Swampert and Barraskewda as sweepers with Swift Swim, Thundurus as Defogger with a really strong 100% accuracy Stab, Thunder and Hurricane, Dusclops as a Wall, and Klefki as Hazard Setter. It started off insanely well, as I played a surprisingly offensive set on Porygon 2, insta-killing his Rain Setter with Thunder, which remember has 100% accuracy in Rain. I'm abusing his own weather against him. The next turns are uneventful, until Hatterene surprises him with Magic Bounce, giving me free rocks, while I surprise him with Giga Drain for Swampert, knocking another mon out. Togedemaru gets his Shell Ball knocked off, which unfortunately makes him useless. I can still Toxic his Dusclops, which he switches into Deny Endeavor. No need to sacrifice Togedemaru though, as I can still outspeed in Trick Room and bring him on to 1%, which I do. I bring in Heracross and purposefully don't Mega Evolve to finish Klefki since I play Moxie on it. This gives me an additional attack boost which I use to knock Dusclops out. Ditto comes into play, but he gets the 50-50 and wins the speed tie, which made Ditto pretty much as useful as France. He surprisingly knocks out Hatterene in one shot. Uh-oh. He also brought superpower for Porygon 2. Uh-oh. His Life Orb will knock him out after another attack, and I have both Heracross and Slurpuff left. If I go in with Heracross and we trade, Barraskewda can then easily win against Slurpuff, which is useless unless I can set it up. This is my only chance. I resist both of his moves with a 100% accuracy. His two remaining moves have a 70% chance to hit, which he will have to use. He misses, and I can squad wipe his team. Not gonna lie, I got pretty lucky here. He would have usually won, which is why he didn't even bother to switch his team up. The match started with Slurpuff versus Klefki. I thought he would Thunder Wave, but instead he played Foul Play. This means he probably plays Foul Play, Reflect, Light Screen and Spikes. A very unthreatening set for my team, as both of my physical attackers resist Dark. I decide to use it for myself, as Ditto can safely set up screens on my side, as well as set up spikes on his side. He defogs it away, since at this point I didn't know defog only removed screens on the opponent's side, and I didn't expect him to defog his own screens away. I switched to Porygon 2 as I successfully stalled all of his screens out. As I set up Trick Room, he switches in Mega Swampert. Hidden Power Grass really helps though, and Swampert is forced out. After switching to Togedemaru, I trade Toxic on his Dusclops for him breaking my Sturdy. Porygon 2 walls most of his team for a couple turns, before I finally get into position with Heracross. I predict the Dusclops and knock off his Eviolite, bringing him down to the last few percent with the help of a Rodent's Blood Sacrifice. Hatterene can take it out before getting killed by a fish. I didn't have any reliable switch in anymore. I try Ditto, but he wins the 50-50 once again, making him completely useless. Chad Porygon 2 takes the hit and manages to set Trick Room up, which gives me an opportunity to heal up. I Thunder Klefki twice. It was just a matter of time before a Swampert would come in, and I actually predict the right moment, which lets me take it out with Hidden Power Grass. Barraskewda isn't able to kill me with close combat. Thunder kills max HP Barraskewda with a 93.8% chance. I get incredibly lucky, and I am able to see this rare occurrence. Lucky me. With Porygon 2 gone, I can't beat his team, and unfortunately lose game 2. However, I am able to switch my team up a bit, and I thought Togedemaru couldn't shine with Dusclops walling me. Arctivicious Fish's Rend would rip through his team and the boosted damage in rain though. Ditto's uselessness disappointed me the last time, and I rather take Togekiss, which completely walls Klefki. I play Ancient Power on it since Serene Grace boosts the probability of getting an Omni boost from 10% to 20%. I start off with it and actually get the boost first try. His Dusclops reveals Haze, a move that removes stat changes. When Togekiss comes back, a few turns later, he switches in Swampert. I have Grass Knot though and bring him down to 16%. Togekiss and Pelipper have a little 1v1 situation where I ultimately beat him with Ancient Power. His Barraskewda can knock me out with close combat. The main reason I drafted Togekiss is its quad resistance to fighting. It only takes 10% of the banded attack, which lets me heal back up. This game is looking amazing for me. My Porygon 2 is only down to half health. The rest are fully healed up, and only half of them have even been in the game. Porygon 2 and Togekiss are an amazing duo defensively, and basically wall the entire team. Unless I'm an idiot. I thought he would superpower Thundurus since Porygon 2 was the obvious switch in. He thunders me into oblivion and I lose all of my momentum. Well, Hatterene technically also has the same quad resistance, but it's not as defensive and it can't recover. My Hatterene could kill Klefki, but I wanted to use the opportunity to heal my little duck back to full health, since Klefki is as threatening as it looks. The Quack finally takes it, as well as Mega Swampert, out. His Barraskewda threatens me though, as Trick Room has expired. I thought I could use Hatterene as a switch-in, but the spikes actually did enough chip damage to not let it take the attack of Thundurus. Togekiss wouldn't have had that problem, and I hate Hatterene, and I wish Togekiss was still alive, and I wish Hatterene would be dead. Thundurus is a problem. A huge problem. I try Mega Heracross, but it can't do shit since it's quad weak to flying. Porygon 2 is dead, since spikes do 25% of damage and both Arctivish and Slurpuff die to Thunder. I, once again, have to rely on the miss. I have to dodge with Slurpuff to set up, since Arctivish can't win after dodging the Thunder, because Barraskewda outspeeds in Chaos. It's exactly the same situation as Game 1. Everything depends on this Thunder. Everything. It's the match ball for both of us. If he hits, I lose. And I also lose my chance for a place in the finale, the chance to be champion. This little shit proves to be the luckiest dude out there. I win the fight after setting up, making my way to the finale. I have had a lot of time to think about this fight. Even though it was insanely unlikely for me to get here again, I knew I would make it. My heart was pounding once again, harder than ever before. Last finale was so close. I finally have a chance to redeem myself. Now what's my plan? I decide to bring my Sand Core with Togedemaru since that worked well in the past. Togekiss is a great wall, especially for Buzzwole. And Golurk is a potential sweeper that's amazing against his team, since I have coverage against each of his mons. With only one space left, I didn't have any space for much Trick Room shenanigans, but I still decided to take my most offensive Trick Room setter in case Togedemaru or Tyranitar might take advantage of it. He brought Blissey as a special wall and Buzzwole as a threatening physical wall. Crocodile, Victini and Dragapult are very strong offensive mons I have to somehow play around. And his last pick was Shinotic, whose main purpose is spreading status moves. I came up with a pretty nasty strategy. Togedemaru's only counter of his are Ghost Mons, mainly Dragapult. My plan was to start off with Togedemaru and switch into Tyranitar. You'll see why in a bit. He unfortunately switches into Buzzwole though, threatening my Tyranitar switch-in. Since a fighting move is obvious, I think he probably expects Togekiss as my wall. I'm scouting for a coverage move with Golurk in case a fighting move is coming. Iron Head. Shit. Togekiss is no longer a switch-in against Buzzwole, making it really threatening. I think I can get a Rock Polish out safely, but he reveals Darkest Lariat. This is really bad. The level 1 is funnily enough my best answer, but something is fishy, right? Why did he switch Buzzwole into Togedemaru in the first turn? I knew something was up and I checked Buzzwole's possible moves. He doesn't have knockoff to remove my item, and he doesn't have any status move to put me to sleep or leech seed me or whatever. Until I found it. Dual Wing Beat or Dual Chop. This has to be it. Togekiss could absorb the dragon attack and mostly shrug off Dual Wing Beat, which he indeed had. After I dodged the attack, I thankfully threatened it out. Buzzwole will continue to be a huge problem though. I para his Victini, which is awesome, before we get into this position after some switching. I set up Trick Room as he puts Buzzwole in. Hatterene actually has Psyshock, a special attack that Blissey can't take, since it applies the target's physical defense stat in the damage calculation. And his Buzzwole, which does have a high defense, is weak to Psychic. His answer was Shinotic, which is able to get much slower than any of my mons with Room Service, a really niche item which lowers a mon's speed in Trick Room. His plan was to spore my biggest threat, but Magic Bounce. This misplay cost him his Shrew. My Hatterene loses against Blissey in a 1v1 though, because Psyshock dealt less damage than I thought. I bring in Togedemaru. I knew he couldn't resist the Buzzwole switch-in and I punish him by bringing him low with Endeavor, before making him suicide with Spiky Shield. Dragapult is the only thing still able to kill Togedemaru, and I decide to sacrifice Hatterene for a clean switch. He reveals his sturdy counter, Will-O-Wisp. Hatterene Magic Bounce proves itself as the funniest ability once again and he switches out. He finally takes my Hatterene Sacrifice after he absorbed my Endeavor. His Victini kills Tyranitar because the paralysis made him slower than me in Trick Room, letting him Brick Break before I could Stone Edge. Dracozolt can take out Crocodile before his Dragapult pressures me out. I para-flinch his Blissey for a while before I bring Dracozolt back in. He sacrifices Victini, stopping my sweep. At this point, let's look at the remaining team. My Togekiss is the only way to beat Dragapult. However, it gets walled by Blissey. Blissey gets beaten by both the Rat and Dracozolt, both of which get countered by Dragapult. His Blissey can't kill Togekiss though, which means if I stay in with it, he won't be able to win. PP stalling me is the only way for him to still win. And that's exactly what he does. But if I get a Predict Ride and he's staying in with Blissey and healing up, while I switch to Dracozolt, I can Bolt Beak either of them and win. There is a win condition for him though. If he stays in with Dragapult and burns me, and I don't use Air Slash, I'm not able to regenerate Blissey's Seismic Tosses anymore. And I can't always Air Slash when Dragapult is in, since he could easily waste all of these PP, losing me the match. After a lot of switching around and trying to predict, I finally Air Slash on a turn where he burns me. Dragapult survives, but the burn will kill him the next turn he stays in. The tables have turned, as I can now PP stall his Blissey. He has to use a move since switching will kill Dragapult. And then, on turn 54, he finally forfeits. There was no way to beat Togedemaru, which could have won against Blissey in a 1v1. What the actual fuck just happened? I won? I won. My little body could not handle a sheer amount of adrenaline running through my veins. Holy This wasn't just the first time he lost in this tournament. This was the first time he lost since all those seasons ago, also against me. But it wasn't over yet. There was still another match I would have to win. He didn't switch any mons for the second game. It was time for another try for my opening strat. I haven't revealed Tyranitar's set yet, and there was a reason. I start with Togedemaru and switch to Tyranitar, knowing that he would switch his Ghostmon in, and then once he saw Tyranitar, back out. I use Pursuit. Pursuit is a really niche attack you barely see, so I knew he wouldn't predict it. I one-hit KO the dragon, removing his only Endeavor counter. Once Buzzwole is gone, Togedemaru is unstoppable. Shinotic unfortunately walls Dracozold, but Hatterene walls him. Blissey then again walls me, but Golurk walls Blissey. Seismic Toss, his only attacking move, is type Fighting, which Ghost is immune to. I Rock Polish, threatening a sweep. His Shinotic unfortunately survives and heals back up. Did you catch it? I played Close Combat. He could have known something was up. Dynamic Punch is a much better fighting move, but I played Close Combat. That's because I played another surprise set I purposefully didn't reveal in game 1. I trick an Assault Vest on Shinotic. An Assault Vest disables the ability to use any non-attacking moves. This makes Shinotic utterly and completely useless. But wait, how did I trick it onto him? Golurk's most useless and usually overlooked ability, Klutz, is technically meant to be a bad ability, like True End or Slow Start. I ignore items' effects. This lets me trick Assault Vest on unknowing opponents. Anyways, a couple turns later and I sacrifice Golurk's last few percent for a free switch. Tyranitar then finishes off Shinotic. His Buzzwole still proves to be a problem though, since Iron Head deals more damage to Togekiss than I thought. I sack Harry Potter over there for some Dracozold action. No decent switch in means I can put Blissey down to 8% before killing Buzzwole. Crocodile finally forces me out, but it gets walled by Togekiss. I deny his Blissey to heal back up thanks to my 60% flinch chance. His Victini is dangerous, so I sacrifice Tyranitar for the perfect Togedemaru setup. Sandstorm kills every non-ground, steel or rockmon I bring low with Endeavor. I kill Blissey and bring Crocodile down to 1%. Unfortunately he had knockoff which stops the red sweep, but with Sandstorm still up, Dracozold can finish Crocodile off. With one last Earthquake, I can kill his last remaining mon. And I win. Against all odds, I made it through Victory Road and I beat the champion. I felt like I've just won the World Pokémon Tournament. Like I beat the final boss in a game. Like I finally reached the mountaintop. I know it's silly to compare a small friendly tournament to those things, but I don't know. It was an incredible experience. And you can't judge. You just watched a 90-minute video about it, asshole. Anyways, I talked with L afterwards and he was obviously a good sport about it. He told me that prepping against my team was basically impossible, since he had to build against Sandstorm, Trick Room, Magic Bounce, Unburden, Water Absorb, Paraflinch, Ditto, a level 1, Hyper Defense, Dynamic Punch, Confusion, Fish's Rent, Bolt Beak, and later known Pursuit Traps, Assault Vest, Trickery, and so on. It was just too chaotic, but he had fun. Ultimately, the tournament became a part of my life. Not a very big or really important part, but no matter how tough life was or how shitty work was, it always gave me something to look forward to every week. The next fight. Making this video took so much time. I've drawn well over 1,000 individual pictures on Microsoft Paint, recorded and cut around 50 fights, had a script with over 16,000 words, and I can't tell you how many times OpenShot crashed. But it was all worth it. Even if this video gets buried deep in the internet's abyss of forgotten content, I'm really happy that I made it. For you and for myself. Alright, that was it. Video's done now. You can go home. Love you. Bye.